Hey guys, Steve here. I want to show you how I've been able to multiply the magnification of my rifle scope by adding a magnifier behind it. Okay, so you can see here I have my Remington 700 long range. Let me take this camera off the tripod here. So I have my Remington 700 long range rifle. This is chambered in 300 Winchester Magnum. And I have on it you can see a very long picatinny rail. I think this is about 13 inches long, maybe 14 inches long. And I have in front here a scope that has a 8 to 32 times magnification. And then behind it I have mounted a magnifier that has a 5 times magnification. So what that means is, in lining them up this way, we can multiply the magnification of these two. So that means if right now, if you can see on my scope, I have my zoom set at 12. So if I have 12 times 5, that gives me a total of 60 times zoom. So I've just about doubled the capacity, at least at this zoom level, of what this scope can do by adding this magnifier behind it. So the reason I did this was because I would go to the range with my, just when I had just the normal scope on it. I go to the range, and at 100 yards out, it was somewhat hard for me to see my target holes. So I would shoot, and I could just kind of barely see a hole, even with the like reactive style targets that have like different colors. You know, when you shoot them, and so I thought, there's hopefully a better way for me to be able to see where I'm shooting, because if you spend a lot of money on a nice gun and then a lot of money on a nice scope, and then you shoot and you still can't even see where you're shooting, what's the point of having a long range weapon if you can't get your scope zeroed properly, right? So then some people, what they do is they'll buy a spotting scope, which is another instrument with a really big lens on it that can see farther than your scope can. So they'll shoot, and you see a lot of people at range with these. They'll shoot, then they'll look through their spotting scope to see where their hole was, and then come back and make adjustments. So again, if you want to buy a nice spotting scope with a long range to it, that's a lot of money that you spend. And so I was like, you know, I wonder if I could somehow combine more than one scope. What would happen if I did that? And I got to thinking that it's probably not a good idea to put one scope behind another scope, because if you were to put your hand in front of your scope, it's not going to ever focus on your hand. You know, scopes are made to see what's far away. It's made to bring what's far away close to you. And so whatever's already close to you just gets lost. But then I was looking on Amazon at assault rifle style red dot magnifiers. So these things are made to go behind a red dot scope, and they're made to magnify that image but yet keep the red dot clear. So that made me think, well, if the red dot stays clear, then if I can position one of these magnifiers behind my scope, maybe my view at the end of my scope will also stay clear. And so it did. So what I want to do is I want to show you what I have here. So this magnifier in the back is just like a release lever here. So I'm going to take this off. Now it doesn't really matter how precise you mount this in the back, because really that's just there to magnify your scope. So your scope needs to stay perfectly screwed down really tight. That should never change. So with just my scope on here now, I'm going to take this little clip off the bottom of this camera that was being used to attach it to the tripod. Okay, that way it'll sit on this rail better. Okay, so in looking through my scope, you can see I got a fairly wide field of view. I think this is like a 50 millimeter field of view. So it's pretty good. You can see out my window here of my house. You can see across the street there, my neighbor has some, if I can zoom in just with the camera here, he has some of these like candle things in his backyard, like these like little lantern type things. Okay, so in looking through my scope by itself, at the 12 times magnification, I see that. So, you know, compared to the naked eye, which would be that, with this camera zoomed all the way out, then that's pretty good. You know, I mean, it's zoomed in 12 times. It's decent. But still, at 100 yards away, and that looks to be about 100 yards away from here, or so roughly. If I put a 300 Win Mag bullet through one of those, it's going to be hard to see where that hole is, right? So enter this magnifier right here. So again, let me just try to, if I can hold both of these steady. There they are. There they are. Okay. So this is magnified 5 times. Kind of see them right there. Not that easy. So still, you know, that's not clear. You know, there's no way you'd be able to see holes with just a 5 times magnification. But when I mount this guy behind my rifle scope and clamp it down like that, then if I look through here, get these lined up, right focal length here, look at that. Look how close that is now. See? So we have the 12 times magnification of the scope and the 5 times magnification of the magnifier multiplying by themselves and giving me a 60 times magnification. Now if I shoot these now, I can see the hole. And when I'm at the range, and I prove this at the range, I'm just nailing the targets, no problem. I'm seeing my holes, no problem. I'm getting really accurate shots again and again. So this works, guys. This works. So if you want to increase your magnification of your scope and not have to spend a ton of money on a super long range zoom, and also you want to save money from having to buy a spotting scope, then this is a setup I recommend that you do. I will try to put the links to each of these products in the description below. So you guys, if you want to buy something like this, you can. And hopefully it will help you as well. Now, one thing I wanted to mention too is that this did not work out of the box in lining it up. I had to buy a different mount for the magnifier. The mount that this came with was too low, so it was not lining up perfectly with the eyepiece of my scope. So what that meant was I had to order another mount that was the same height as my rings for my scope here. So once I got that in the mail and lined it up, then now that works. Also, I found that when I put the scope behind it, that the crosshairs did not line up perfectly in the middle of the magnifier. So when I looked through the back, I had like the crosshairs were up in a corner. And so to fix that, I found if I just loosened these screws on top and turned the magnifier inside of the mounting bracket here, that I was able to get those to line up. And then what I did was I made sure I held it in place so that the crosshairs were in the middle, and I slowly tightened each of these down so that it's being held in place in the exact position I need it. And it might not, if you just tighten all these down without looking through it while you're tightening them down, it might not line up. So just make sure that as you're tightening them, that you are able to see the crosshairs good. Also, when you first line it up, it may not be in focus. You may not be able to see the crosshairs. You may not be able to see your target. So my scope has this ring here that I'm able to turn, and that is actually what brought it in focus at first. So the combination of having this in the right place with the crosshairs, turning this to get the image in focus, and also turning this at the front of my scope to adjust the yardage of how far away you're viewing. I had to turn that as well. So right now I have it set all the way to infinity. If I have it turned any lower, I lose focus. So you have to have these things all set up in a particular way for it to work. Also, if I zoom in too much farther with my regular scope zoom, then it goes out of focus as well. So you have to kind of play with your settings. This is what I found works good for me, and it's awesome. I go to the range, I can see my holes out to 100 yards, no problem. Now, I'm not sure how this will do past 100 yards because I just haven't shot that far yet, This whole theory and system may break down beyond 100 yards. I'm not sure. But I know that at that distance, it's working great, and I'm very happy with it. All right. So guys, hope you got something out of this. I hope it helps you. And take care. Bye-bye.